Hey, everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Christy Brower, here with my sister, co host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver.
Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's a holiday week here in the U.S., and we're
Yeah,
we've got a lot to do.
we do. But we are both wearing True Crime Squad t
We
shirts.
are. We didn't
I'm,
even plan it, but here we
I'm
are.
sporting my original resting toad face, which, if you
Hmm
know, you know. This is what Chad Daybell looks like in court in every single hearing he's ever been in. This is my impression of him,
hmm
which is where this whole thing, this is my catchphrase that I developed. This whole thing. Now, what have you got?
That's right. I'm wearing the FOS list. So
Yeah.
the FOS list is something we've had for years over on Wednesday nights, especially on the live stream case updates. That
Mhm.
if you are particularly egregious or we just hate your guts a lot, you go straight to the top of the FOS list. FOS means fight on sight. You can imagine Chad Daybell, Tim Ballard. Yeah, they're on the FOS list.
The Mormon Church, because this is a Mormon Misdeeds episode. Come
Uh huh.
on.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Now, we're not calling for violence or anything. Just, fight on sight. Yeah,
This is all talk with no action, as you can
of
imagine.
course. Yeah.
However, it's kind
I,
of fun to think about.
I don't think you see either of us ever really throwing down. But,
I know I have many times said I would like to kick so and so in the dick, and I really mean it. Would
mhm,
I actually do it? No. I just
probably not.
want to. Maybe
But
dream about it, but no.
but you could always fight with your words. It's kind of what
I
we
can
already
fight
do.
with my words, and that is what we do. Yes, our fights are fights of words, and boy, are we going to have some fights of words today.
Yes, we
So,
are.
this is a Mormon Misdeeds episode, which means we are covering 3 different cases related to Mormon people, Mormon church, Mormonism, and crimes being committed in the name of. So, let's talk a little bit more about that. Katie, you're going to kick us off with a true crime update.
Yeah. Well, one of the kings of Mormon misdeeding, Chad Daybell, has some new
This guy right
filings.
here.
There he is. Has some new filings that are worth discussing. His trial is coming up in just 4 short months, his attorney is pointing out frantically, and threatening to ask for a continuation. For the love of God, John Pryor, how much time do you need? Really?
There are not enough pearls in the world to clutch for the
hmm
request of another continuance. Are you kidding me?
Now, the first thing that he is clutching about and upset about is that the prosecution has filed a request to amend the indictment. This is the language of conspiracy because if you remember in Lori's trial, the language of the conspiracy of 5 or more people, some unknown, they amended that right before they went to the jury, which legally they can do. They can amend the indictment clear up until the time that the jury deliberates. They did that. That caused a big fight in Lori's court. It's of course a part of the appeal that's being scheduled or filed right now in the appellate court. But legally they could do it. The judge was pissed. He didn't like it. He bitched them out pretty good, but he allowed it because he kind of had to. It's a minor thing. It's a minor change that it's just verbiage. Uh, so now they're like, well, let's do that now before we get to trial so it doesn't turn into a thing. And it's turning into a thing because Pryor doesn't like it. And so it cracks me up a little bit. He said the state has not provided the defense with a copy of the proposed amended indictment. The defense has requested from the state a copy of the proposed language in a proposed indictment. As of the date of this filing, the defense has not been provided the copy. The defense cannot agree or stipulate to any amendment without first reviewing said proposed indictment to ensure all of the proposed changes are stated and no further changes are made other than those represented. We might have to come up with a new t-shirt for proposed if he uses that word about 3 more
I
times.
think he might get into the Guinness Book of World Records for the most use of the word proposed, because that was impressive and very repetitive.
He for sure wrote this one. Uh,
Yes, he did. This is definitely John Pryor lingo
mhm.
versus some of the other filings we've read lately that were like, oh, he did not write that. It was way too
Could not,
good.
did not. Yep. The state is attempting to change not only the crime charged against the defendant, but, contrary to their assertion, prosecute under a different provision and under a different burden other than what was presented to the grand jury. Not true at all. What they presented to the grand jury was what they presented to the grand jury. This is the indictment that the grand jury wrote, but the prosecution does have the right to amend that if it's not quite correct, if it's
Right.
within the spirit of the charge, which it is. Uh, but he's going to be contrary. He's doing his job, but the defendant objects to the state amending the indictment regarding the alleged conspirators and is only engaging in semantics to lessen their burden other than how it was presented to the grand jury. Again, not true. What they presented to the grand jury was what they presented to the grand jury. It is semantics. This is dumb.
Mm.
Defendant reserves the right to provide further argument at the hearing on this matter and make additional objections so as to reserve their right to object until such time as a hearing is heard on the state's motion. In the event proposed copy is not provided in an acceptable time prior to hearing, the defense would request a continuance. So that's actually for the hearing, not the trial. I might have misspoke on that.
However, still, come on.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, John has a real history of claiming he hasn't received things that he has received.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
probably on one of those voluminous external hard drives he's got, which
mhm,
I've lost count about how many times he's been provided one now by the
mhm.
prosecution.
But also because the
Uh,
state has filed to change that, that is his notice. So he
right.
has received it. This is just
Hmm.
more of the bitching and grandstanding, but that's okay.
Hmm.
That's whatever. So that's one thing
It's his
that,
job. We know that.
yeah, it's just lawyers lawyering, but it's kind of silly. Okay, but a couple of other things that have come up that are worth discussing. One is a filing from the state. This is their continued response and objection to allowing cameras in the courtroom. We wish they would knock it off. We really wish they would knock it off. But
We all want cameras in the
essentially,
courtroom.
it's a long filing. It's about 10 pages. So I will just provide you with the conclusion. The Daybell case has garnered widespread media attention across the country. The entire state of Idaho has been inundated with media coverage about the murders of Tylee Ryan, J.J. Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. Broadcasting or live streaming the presentation of arguments, hearings, and testimony has the potential of exacerbating prejudice to all parties. Whereas the court has the absolute and sole authority to decide if audio-visual equipment are allowed in the courtroom, the state urges the court to maintain its memorandum and decision and order prohibiting video and photographic coverage issued on September 23, 2022. In the alternative, the state requests that the court limit broadcasting of the trial in such a manner to limit prejudice to the parties. That makes no sense to me because the trial will already be happening. What prejudice? And could there
Right.
possibly
Prejudice
be
to
more
who?
prejudice than already exists?
The other trial already happened. We all know what was said. We all know what was presented. There's no,
Indeed.
yeah, come on.
But the other piece of that really is interesting, one of their arguments is that one of the reasons cameras don't need to be in the courtroom is because Lori's trial was live tweeted in real time by multiple broadcasters and reporters, us included,
Including us.
and that the uh, they said something along the lines of, to the best of our abilities, reviewing the live tweeting. It seemed to be coming across as completely accurate. So why do people need more than that?
Hey, thanks.
Thanks.
Because we worked damn hard to be completely accurate.
As you guys know,
And
we
it was really friggin' hard work.
Lori's trial, our lives fell apart. No, not really.
Yes.
But we
They kind of did, though, man. It took us weeks to recover after that trial.
it
And
really did.
literally, I don't know how I'm not in braces from carpal tunnel syndrome from tweeting on my phone for hours a day, and you too. Like,
Mhm.
what the hell? But hey, we'll take those compliments where
Thank
they
you very
when they
much.
come, because
Yeah.
we were actually recognized by multiple people throughout that trial as being one of the best live tweet coverages of the trial. We had
Uh-huh.
many people tell us that we were the
Mhm.
most detailed, that we gave the best information, and that we summed things up the very best. Like,
Mhm.
and we worked really hard at that. So hey,
Yes, we did.
we'll take it.
We did. Our dear friend Darla did. Aunt Sue did. We all worked together on that
Yes,
one to
we did.
pull it
And it
off.
was fucking hard work.
So thank you, prosecution. Thank you very much.
Hey, we'll take
Sure,
it.
you were talking to us. I'm sure. A naughty East Idaho
I
news.
mean,
Sure.
I think that there is awareness of us more than we
Mhm.
realize. We've discovered later, sort of after the fact, that there are actually people who were involved in that trial who do very much know who we are. We never
Oh,
really
bunches.
knew
Yeah.
if that was the case or not, but we have learned after the fact that, as a matter of fact, yeah, they
Mhm.
do know who
Yeah.
we are. It's probably also why I did not get on a jury a couple of months ago when I had jury duty.
Yeah.
I was
We're neither one of us are
summarily
ever making
dismissed.
it on a jury ever. Yeah, that was not
It's
going to
too
happen.
bad, because I do fully believe I could be fair. I could. I want to
Oh,
hear
for
the evidence.
sure.
I want the legal system to work fairly for everyone. I do.
Hmm. Absolutely. I know. Sad.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I disagree, and I hotly disagree, actually. But that's part of their argument. So kind of
Mhm.
interesting. So then we come down to the motion from the state to consider venue change. This is a renewed motion that
This
was
is so
filed
interesting.
a long time ago. But basically, the state is saying, look, we don't need to be in Ada County anymore. There's no reason for us to drag this entire trial 4 hours away, be such a huge hardship on the court. It is so expensive. Let's move it back either to Fremont County, terrible idea, or like Idaho
Right.
Falls,
Much
because
better idea.
we cannot possibly pay for this again, though they will if they have to. They don't want to. And they don't want, honestly, to have to go live in a hotel for the next 3 months, and from March and so on
Well, and
to,
you think about Prosecutor Lindsay Blake's dad died during Lori Vallow's trial while she
yeah.
was in Boise
Hmm.
prosecuting that trial. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to think about them a little bit as people too. Like,
Yeah.
that was shitty, man. That was
Well, and
shitty.
how much of our law enforcement ended up down there because they had to testify and stuff. And like,
Mhm.
it's a big deal. So they're saying, look, what there's no going to Boise protecting the jury pool. That argument doesn't really fly anymore because Lori's already been prosecuted. This has been everywhere. There's
Mhm.
movies, there's
Right. Well,
podcasts, there's
and Ada
so
County
much
has
news
already,
coverage
yeah, like
now been
airing got their dirt
saturated.
out of Ada.
Yeah. So I'll just give you their conclusion. It is another quite long brief. Due to the significant changes in circumstances, information, and timing that were in existence at the time of the change of venue was initially granted, the state would respectfully request this court reconsider its order from October 8th, 2021, and keep the trial in Fremont County, or in the alternative, this court reconsider a transfer of venue to a closer, less saturated, and less expensive venue. Okay, I'm not surprised. That makes sense. Uh, then, of course, in comes John Pryor with the clutching of the pearls.
Here we
Uh,
go. Got him.
this brief is wild because it's not even straight on the paper. Like, whoever copied this had it off the G and left it that way, which is wild. So, did the state actually do that? Or as they put this up on their website, or did Pryor? I don't know, but John, I hope you
Hot
didn't
mess
submit
from the
it like
beginning.
this. Yeah. So he's saying the state has failed to provide any legal authority to allow a motion to reconsider the court's prior ruling. The state has failed to provide any legal or factual authority that overcomes the court's extensive analysis and ruling. I don't know that that's true. The state has referenced only an interview and media presentation as the authority to justify the change of venue back to Fremont. The state has failed to submit any expert analysis or authority other than the perception of a handful of people who were interviewed for a media article, and so on and so forth. This one is great. And he actually put this in bold with an underline under it. So that means it's like bang, bang, really pay attention. The state is seeking a move of the trial to a number of eastern Idaho counties as alternatives, and in essence is forum shopping. That's the bolded part. To gain an advantage in the upcoming trial, forum shopping. Okay, honey.
That's
Do you
hilarious.
think Ada County, that wasn't forum shopping too?
Yeah, that was 100% forum shopping, John Pryor.
The
Come
state,
on.
yeah, the state is engaging in last minute grandstanding. Grandstanding, really? By attempting to cause potential further delay by seeking a change of venue 4 months before a trial. I, if not now, when? Isn't this like the time this would
The
happen?
time. Yes, it is.
The
This
defendant
is
reserves
fairly
the right.
similar to when they moved it last time. It may have been a little further out, but not much.
Mhm. The defendant reserves the right to provide further argument at this hearing on this matter. Well, of course, in the event the court allows this motion to reconsider to proceed and the state supplements their motion with additional evidence or attempts to present witness testimony, the defense would request a continuance. So I don't know what to say about that. I think the prosecution is correct, but there were studies that were done the first time. If you
Yeah,
recall,
should we go back to those very excellently done studies?
Mark Means had arranged for a study, big Mark Means air quotes, in Fremont County and the surrounding area to see if he thought that there would be a potential here for a fair trial. The problem was the people that he hired weren't qualified to do it and weren't
Did a
asking
terrible job.
correct questions. And actually, we received one of those phone calls. One of my kids did, and we recorded it. So it's actually in our show notes, or it's in our. Well, I'll try to put a link of it into the show notes if I can find it. But at any rate,
Yeah.
and that one actually got the court kicked that one out because it was bananas. But there were
Well, and
other
it
studies
wasn't like
that.
they have to be certified in being able to do a study like this as
Mhm.
some kind of survey agency, and they
And they
weren't.
weren't. Yeah. So who knows? Basically, he's saying there hasn't been any study of the area again to see if people, think Chad's guilty. And so,
Where are you going to find people who don't at this point?
mhm,
I mean, really, what you have to do is you have to find people who are willing to listen to the evidence
mhm,
and be fair about what's presented. It's not
yeah,
about guilt or innocence or knowledge of the case
no,
at this point. It's
mhm,
about people being willing to be impartial
yeah,
and listen to the jury instructions and what they are to do.
mhm,
I think it's a
for sure.
little different thing than your personal belief.
Yep, for sure. So those are the new filings. Some of that we think will be fought out in 2 weeks now on the 29th when we go to court.
It's
But we don't
only
know if
one.
it'll all be.
It's my birthday. We're going to court
Yeah.
on my birthday.
Hmm.
Well, I just have to say this. I find the idea that moving the trial to Fremont County absolutely fucking hilarious because the
Hmm.
courthouse is tiny.
Oh
The
yeah, it's
courtrooms
impossible.
hold maybe 30 people, maybe 40. I don't know. It's not very many.
Mhm.
They're tiny. So if they're going to move it, they should move it here to Bonneville County, which is where I live, which
Mhm.
is a much bigger courthouse, bigger
Yeah.
courtrooms, much more capable of handling something like this.
Mhm.
Still way smaller than Ada County, however.
Yeah. But much cheaper. Much, much
Yes.
cheaper. Maybe they
But
should just do it at Mountain America Convention Center.
right, they should do it at the event center. Then everyone can attend. See, that's the
Mhm.
problem with not allowing cameras in the courtrooms and moving it back here is that is way fewer people who will actually be able to physically attend the trial.
Yep.
Way fewer.
Mm-hmm.
And that just does not seem right to me.
No.
I mean, fine, you want to grant the move, and allow a camera in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that people who report on this, like us and many others, don't feel like they have to try to strong arm their way into a tiny little courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be horrific. And
Oh yeah.
Fremont County, they don't even have air conditioning, guys.
Oh
It's
no.
horrible. Their courtroom is on the second floor. It's hot as hell in there, even in the spring, because you fill it up with people. It's not good. There is just
Mm-hmm.
no way. The
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure will not support it.
No, they cannot possibly do it at Fremont or Madison. The
No,
Madison
Madison's
courtrooms
not
are
much bigger.
small. Yeah, it's not much bigger.
Here in
But
Idaho Falls, we definitely have a bigger courtrooms, bigger infrastructure just in general, as far as like
yeah.
hotels, restaurants, places for people to stay when they're coming in. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Fremont County, where they would have to stay in another town.
Yeah.
And travel every day if it's somebody,
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many reasons why it's not a good idea.
No, for sure not. So we'll see if the judge will even entertain that conversation or if he's just going to go, nope, this has already been decided on. We're not changing our minds now. He
And
could.
he may, he very well could.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me like he really would like to just structure this exactly like the last one was.
Yeah, I
But
think so. But it's very different when the defendant wants cameras in the courtroom. I mean,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's
Well, and
it
let's
was
be clear
unanimous last
about,
time.
yeah. Why would John Pryor want this to stay in Ada County? Because he lives there.
Right.
This is where John
That's
lives.
local to him.
Yeah. So he
He
doesn't have to bring his
lives
ass up
5
here and
hours
stay in
away.
a hotel for 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to kick the mic over to you for our main case.
Oh, we have a doozy. All right, guys. This rotten trash bag is Scott Owen. Scott Owen is a therapist from Utah who has been arrested and accused of sexually assaulting his clients.
Mm-hmm.
This will come as no surprise to most of you, but
Mm-hmm.
Scott Owen is a Mormon. Scott Owen has contracted with the Mormon Church to provide therapy for men who experience, and trust me, this is a Mormon word, it is not my phrase, same-sex attraction. That's the very romantic phrasing that the Mormon Church uses for us gay people. And so this will sound familiar because we've talked about other therapists who have gotten into major hot water in similar situations. So what happens is that bishops, who are the leaders of congregations in the Mormon Church, have a list of therapists and they can choose from to send their church, their ward members to
Mm-hmm.
for therapy if they are in need of it, and the Mormon Church will pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So Scott Owen was on the list for same-sex attracted men.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that Scott Owen's been using a pretty, let's call it unusual kind of therapy, and that is sexually assaulting his patients.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
He is charged with 10 counts of rape with a foreign object and forcible sodomy for 2 of his patients. Most of the people who have come forward now, the statute of limitations in Utah has already expired, which I don't understand why sex crimes ever have a statute of limitations. That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But 12 men have now come forward. And the police are happily taking as many statements as people want to give, even if they're too late.
Mm-hmm.
But right now he's charged with 2, and he is being held without bond because the judge did determine that he's a risk to the community. You think so? This is what Scott Owen looks like now when showing up in court, which is much preferred my preference of how to witness him rather
Mhm.
than that other professional photo.
Yeah.
So Scott Owen either gave up voluntarily or was taken from him his license to practice therapy in 2018, you know, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
due to reports of inappropriate sexual contact with his clients. This was reported to the State Board of Licensing in Utah, and it was also reported, I know you're going to know this, to the Mormon Church. Guess who did not call the police? Either of those entities.
Yep.
In Utah, the State Board of Licensing does not actually have to report these things to the police.
Isn't that something? Wonder why.
Most states do.
Mhm.
But again, the protection of predators is built into the system. It's built into the system of the Mormon Church. It is built into the theocracy that is Utah to protect these men.
Yep.
So it turns out that the original allegations were actually made against him to the licensing board and to a bishop in the Mormon Church in 2016.
Yeah.
No one did anything. They happened again in 2018, and that is when the licensing board was like, okay, you're done. He says his license, he voluntarily gave it up. They say they revoked it.
Mhm.
They're probably both covering their own asses, to be perfectly
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah.
But since then, he's simply been working in his agency as a trainer. He's been teaching other therapists how to work with their same sex attracted clients, guys.
What in the fuck? Are you serious?
Right. Yeah. Because
Oh.
in Utah, he does not have to hold a license to teach other therapists. So that's how his agency covered all of this up. So what happened is that there was a big investigation by ProPublica and the Salt Lake Tribune. They published their investigation in August of 2023. And this was the first that the police in Utah had heard of this.
Mhm.
I have to give them credit because although they are law enforcement in Utah and we know how dicey that can be,
Mhm.
they did jump right on it, started investigating him, started seeking statements from victims, and in October arrested him.
Mhm.
He has now been arraigned and is being held on 10 counts, and the judge did not give him bail.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through, I've got a bunch of quotes from the different articles that I want to share with you to explain how this all came about because it's important. There's a lot of the Mormon Church's hand in all of this, and I want y'all to know that. Sorry, I have something going on with my hair, and as you look at myself in the camera and see something wrong with my hair, yeah, I apologize. Okay, it's fixed. Okay, so Millet is the original victim. He saw Owen um, for therapy sessions. Owen said he was teaching Millet to be intimate without being sexual because Owen's whole premise, if you can call it that, is that these same sex attracted men just have problems with intimacy.
Mhm.
So his plan to cure them of that was to be intimate with them himself, a man, which was
Mhm.
for their intimacy problems with women. Makes no sense. Now, Millet, he trusted Owen because he was a therapist and a church leader. He was a bishop in the Mormon Church at the time.
Mhm.
And he remembers that at first he Owen would hold him in his appointments. Can you imagine a
What?
therapist saying, "Here's my therapy for you. I'm going to hold you." But
Oh
here
my
is this
god.
young gay man, and he says he remembers that at first the embraces felt powerful and positive. He said, "I'm this vulnerable gay kid from BYU. I was just craving this physical touch and it was wonderful." And so it wasn't immediately a red flag to this kid. He was also just a kid. He was a
Mhm.
very young adult. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, he told him that God gives certain people special permission to do things that are normally wrong. This is what prosecutors have written, adding
Mhm.
that the patient took this to mean that the defendant had religious authority to be sexually intimate with him.
Yeah.
This idea that God said it's okay, even though it's against the rules, goes right back to the very beginning of Mormonism. And those are the same kind of words that were used during the beginning of polygamy.
Mhm.
Joseph Smith said words like that. Two
Mhm.
women who, or shall we say, teenage girls,
Children. Two
who
children.
he, children, who he wanted to marry and be intimate with. And they're like, but you're already married. This is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. This goes against God. And he said things
Mhm.
like, sometimes God authorizes things that seem wrong for certain people to do them. The special people,
Mhm.
you know, does this sound at all familiar to you? Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, Tim Ballard, Jody Hildebrandt. They all say these things. Well, God said I
Mhm.
could do it. So it's okay. It's just okay for me if I do it, right?
Yeah.
God said, remember, God said.
Mhm.
And you have to understand if you are raised a Mormon child, Mormon authority is beat into your head from the time that you are old enough to sit up that
Mhm.
there are men in the Mormon church who hold authority over you. And
Mhm.
if they tell you something is okay, then it is okay.
Mhm. That was, or tell you to do something, or
Yes.
do
And not just
something.
that it is okay, but that you have to do it.
Yeah.
This also goes back to the Book of Mormon, where in the Book of Mormon, Nephi was told by Jesus to kill a man while he was sleeping to steal some documents from him that he needed. And because
Mhm.
Jesus said it was okay, even though murder is wrong.
Mhm.
See,
Oh,
this is deeply built in. This is not just one guy out there acting on his own. This is built into their theology. And it is why it continues to happen. Because if one man can have that authority, maybe others can too. And now we've got women taking on
absolutely.
that authority as well. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I know this is blurry, but I wanted you to hear this. Utah law says patients can't consent to sexual acts with a healthcare professional if they believe the touching is part of a medically or professionally appropriate diagnosis, counseling, or treatment. It is illegal
It is
to
not
do.
a thing. It's
It
not a
is
thing to
illegal
consent
even
to.
in Utah to
Mhm.
do. So this was covered by um, this was covered by excuse me, state law,
Yeah.
even though no one bothered to report it.
Mhm.
So here are a few more things. The term bishop pay. So bishop pay was a term used for Utah-based therapists that simply meant the bishop is paying this bill. That's who we will bill for this.
Mhm.
Okay. So, like when you're filling out insurance forms or other things, when you're starting counseling, there's a box to check that says bishop pay, which means their bishop will pay the bill. Several Utah-based therapy businesses require that anyone using this payment method also sign a confidentiality waiver, allowing therapists to share patient information with the patient's bishop. So they
Holy
give
shit.
up their confidentiality if the bishop is
Whew.
paying, which means anything they say, anything they talk about can be reported back to the bishop, which can be reported back to the Mormon Church, which can then lead to consequences in
Sure.
the Mormon Church. It's
Oh,
so
that's
gross.
awful. Yeah.
It's so terrible. And we're talking people who have been raised their entire lives to trust their bishop, that this is a good thing, that this is just for their support and for the bishop
Mhm.
to know that and it's also accountability for the bishop to know that you're following through and doing what you're supposed to do. But
Well,
it
and
also means that
we're
anything
helping
you
you.
say, yeah, we're helping you.
We're helping you. We're saving your
Right,
salvation right now. Yeah.
right. Now, listen to this. The church handbook for Mormon bishops gives little guidance as to how a bishop should recommend a therapist or other medical professional, or how to ensure a church member is receiving quality care. They do not vet these therapists. They are not vetted in any other way but one. It
Mm-hmm.
says that when a church member is seeking counseling about intimacy, a bishop should refer them to professionals who specialize in such counseling and whose beliefs and practices are consistent with church doctrine. So they're only going to send you to a Mormon therapist who will report back to your bishop and who will steer your counseling in a direction that is consistent with Mormon church doctrine. Therapy is supposed to be about what is best for you as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
However, it isn't. It is, in fact, steered toward what is best to keep you compliant and involved with the church and following church doctrine.
Right.
So, this is a setup from the beginning.
This one just particularly grinds my gears because young gay people in the church, particularly at one of the church owned schools like BYU or BYU Idaho or BYU Hawaii, are unbelievably vulnerable. You
Agree.
you have to understand if they are truly going to choose a life of being a gay person, they will lose their membership in the church. They will lose their education. They'll get kicked out. They will lose their families potentially. They have a
Mm-hmm.
lot to lose. Their goals, their
Everything.
plans, their hopes, their dreams, they're getting dashed on the rocks right now. So
Yeah.
when they go to the bishop and the bishop sends them to therapy, this is because people desperately want to change. They desperately want to be different. They desperately don't want to lose everything that they've worked their whole lives for or
Right.
think that they're supposed to be or do.
Right.
And so for that therapist to take these young men and sexually assault them, I can't even imagine. I would love to know how many of his patients over the years have commit suicide
Yeah.
because we know that especially in men, young gay men at BYUI or BYU, they've had a
Mm-hmm.
very grisly history of suicide. And
Absolutely.
it horrifies me to think that perhaps this jackass could be a part of that because of his actions.
100% he is.
Mhm.
There's also this issue. Uh, Millet, who is now 36, said going to therapy with Owen was his bishop's firm counsel. Firm counsel means you're going to fucking do it.
Yeah.
You're going to do it or you're going to get disfellowshipped, which
Mhm.
means basically put on church probation,
Mhm.
or excommunicated, which means kicked out.
Yep.
It was that same bishop who had given him the required ecclesiastical recommendation to attend BYU. Here's the thing: if you're going to go to a Mormon owned university, you must have a bishop's endorsement. You cannot go if you don't.
Yep.
And if your bishop revokes that endorsement, you will be kicked out of school
Mhm.
and destroy whatever you're trying to build for yourself.
Mhm.
So he feared that not following what his bishop said could impact his academic career because it 100% would.
Oh, 1,000%.
Losing
Yeah.
losing his bishop's endorsement meant he would not have been able to attend the church-owned university. And if you're already in school and
Mhm.
already moved partway into your program and you're, by the way, paying to go to
Mhm.
school there, it is not as though it is free. It is not.
Yep.
So this was a huge thing. Millet
Mhm.
said, since he referred me to Scott, who was another bishop at the time, it seemed that it was required of me academically and religiously. He felt compelled that he had to do
Mhm.
it. Trying to say no to either of them would have been overwhelming at that time in my life.
Sure. They held
These
all the
young men,
power.
right, these young men had no power and
No.
they felt they had to comply and
Mhm.
they did not dare speak up about what was happening or question this form of therapy.
Mhm.
This is the destruction that protecting predators does to people's lives.
Yeah.
Is the Mormon Church complicit in this? 100%.
Oh,
They've known since
absolutely.
2016. And you know what they did, guys? They put a special check mark next to Scott Owen's name in their records, indicating that he is a person that's probably not safe for other people. That's
Yeah.
what they did.
Yeah.
That was their due diligence to protect people from him.
Yep. While he's over there training therapists. Are you
While
even
he's
kidding me?
training therapists,
Yep.
while he has been forcing his patients into sexual contact with him. Some of the reports say that many of the men were required to take off all of their clothes while Scott continued to wear his own
Mhm.
and sit in these therapy sessions naked.
Yep.
And that it would start slowly. It was a whole grooming process with the
Of course.
holding. And
Mhm.
then there was kissing and touching. And before you know it, there's actual sex occurring in these appointments
Yep.
for these incredibly confused young men who
Mhm.
have been told that being gay is wrong and
Yeah.
an abomination. And now their therapist is forcing them into sex, clearly has authority over them. They have no
Mhm.
choice. They have been raped by their therapist.
Mhm.
And this
And don't
man,
dare speak up because it will get them kicked out of the church and kicked out of their school.
yes, yeah. I wish I could say that this guy is an outlier, but he isn't because we have
No.
reported on several Utah therapists
Mhm.
quite recently that have all done shit like this.
Yep.
And you know who's known about it all along? The Mormon Church. That's
Yeah.
who.
Mhm.
These things are getting reported, and no one is doing anything.
Yep.
No one. Until these young men now are older men, they're adults.
Mhm.
They are feeling much braver and are now able to report.
Yep.
But the damage is done, you guys. For these
Absolutely it is.
guys, for these poor young men, it breaks my heart. It
Mhm.
absolutely breaks my heart. But it
Yep.
also makes me so furious
Mhm.
that the two entities who could have done something about this licensing board, which is just an absolute farce,
Mhm.
and the Mormon Church, all one bishop had to do was pick up the phone and call the police.
Yep.
But they don't, because instead they consult with the church's legal arm, Curtin
Mhm.
McConkie,
Yep.
and are told not to report. That you don't have to report. And we'd
Yep.
prefer that you just didn't. And we'll put this special check mark by his name instead.
Mhm.
Because that solves it all, guys.
Yeah. Surely.
Whew.
He'll never hurt another person again.
Yeah.
Well, at least he
He
has
won't
charges
now.
now, but
But yeah, where the hell has this
way
been?
too little, too late.
It does my heart good that, we're doing our little part here as best we can.
Mhm.
And ProPublica, Vice, the Salt Lake
Mhm.
Tribune are doing their parts as well. Um,
Absolutely.
there are big news organizations investigating these kinds of things now and really recognizing the Mormon Church for who they really are.
Mhm.
And it is the only thing that is going to save anybody. And even then, that the members are taught that they are not to read any of those articles or listen
Mhm.
to any of this, that this is all propaganda to
Mhm.
harm the Mormon Church.
Mhm.
They are set up from the beginning to believe that the Mormon Church is the victim
Yep.
and that there are lots of haters out there, and don't be listening to any of them.
Mhm.
But the haters are getting louder. And I think the Salt Lake Tribune is a very, very important contributor to that,
Yeah, they are.
because it's pretty hard to ignore the Salt Lake Tribune if you live in Utah.
Mhm. For sure.
And they are a big news organization that is not owned by the Mormon Church. And there are
Mhm.
several, Deseret News and KSL are owned by the Mormon Church, but Salt Lake Tribune is not.
Mhm.
And fortunately, they are willing to stick their neck out
Yeah,
in this situation.
absolutely.
We
Well,
will
and
continue to follow this Scott Owen deal, because there may be
yeah.
other charges. There are,
Oh,
according
yeah.
to statements made by the police, they are continuing to receive more victims coming forward.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and now that he's been charged, he'll be coming out of
Yeah,
the woodwork.
they'll
Yeah,
feel much safer to be able to speak up now.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the other piece of this, of course, is that the church is saying, well, yeah, we made some mistakes in the past, but we're not like that anymore. We're not like that anymore.
Bullshit.
This is what we do now. This is what we do now. It doesn't matter. This
No,
is what you have done. And also, why should we believe that for a half a second?
I don't believe it. They just won their
No,
court case in Arizona.
Arizona. They had the nerve to
The
fight that.
Arizona
Yeah.
Supreme Court said, yeah, you didn't have to report child sexual abuse of young children.
Mm-mm.
And so they have now dropped the lawsuit that the victims in that case had brought against the Mormon Church. So
Yeah.
they're still very much doing this
Yep.
right now, today.
Absolutely.
And we're going to continue to cover it and bring this to you in our Mormon Misdeeds segments and do our best to raise the volume on this issue so that more and more people, and particularly more and more Mormons, understand what their religion is doing and where their money is going.
Yep.
Because you know what is supposed to be paying for those counseling sessions? Fast offerings. So, fast offerings come from one Sunday a month. I think it's the third Sunday of the month.
The first.
Mormons,
I
is
think
it the
it's the
first?
first. Yeah.
It's been a while, guys. You are to fast for 2 meals.
Hmm.
And then the fast offering boys come around, and you are supposed to give them the money that you would have spent on whatever you would have spent on meals for those two, for that day, for those two
Hmm.
meals, to give to the church. And that is meant to go to support the needy and to support social programs like this.
Hmm.
But definitely not to support the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars that the Mormon Church is sitting on, I'm
Hmm.
sure. Yeah.
No, for sure, no. No, they're
So
asking their members to
Mormons
go
are paying
hungry. Yeah.
people like this, whether they know it or not.
Hmm. Without a doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and asking their members to go hungry, asking their members in another way to give more money to
Hmm.
this church, because this church pays for nothing on its own, trust me.
Hmm.
So that they can pay therapists like this. So they can
Yep.
pay to not vet therapists and not report them when they are doing abuse.
Yep.
Well, this is our Monday episode. As always, we will keep you updated on this case and, of course, on the Daybell case.
Hmm.
And we will be back Tuesday and Wednesday with lots more content. And we'll be back Wednesday night with our case updates live stream. If you like our merch, because you know it's out now, get your own resting toad face t-shirt or FOS t-shirt or
Hmm.
mug or embroidered sweatshirt or tumbler over at truecrimesquad.com. There's a link to click there that takes you right to our merch store. It really helps to support us do what we do, and
Hmm.
we put out merch because y'all ask for it. You want it,
Yeah.
and you know what? We try to bring you everything you want, so we're going to keep doing that.
We're like
And
Santa Claus over here.
we are. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, leave us a review wherever you can. All of these things help to support us and continue to do the work that we do. And of course,
Hmm.
you being here and being a part of what we do is a big part of that. So thank you very much for
Absolutely.
watching and listening and supporting us. You know it. We are the True Crime Squad.
Take care.